Hey George, welcome to A Day in the Life. Today we're focusing on the risk management major at Butler University, and you are one of the few freshman students who came in with major declared. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Darren. So yeah, as you said, I'm George Dalle-Molle. I'm from Boulder, Colorado, and I'm one of, I think, three freshmen coming in as a risk management major. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for coming on. Yeah, it's in the same boat as you. Three years ago, kind of crazy to just look back and reflect on that. Graduating here next month or so. We're currently on our Thanksgiving break, so this is good to be home, with the family. I have been doing homework nonstop, and it's kind of cool. I think I just wrote my last essay of college, so
Really?
that's quite exciting.
Well done.
Yeah, so coming in as a freshman, just kind of reflecting, on kind of like some of the conversations I went through, with myself, thinking, oh, why do I want the risk management major? Conversations, obviously, with the, parents, just kind of that perspective of them trying to understand, what jobs can you have with the risk management major, and just why would you want to go into that versus maybe a safer route in
Yeah.
business with that more panned out career path of accounting, finance, marketing,
Yeah.
something like that. So if you want to just kind of kick off that
Absolutely.
conversation.
Yeah. So I mean, the open-endedness was really one of the big perks that drew me in because I mean, it's obviously reassuring, I guess, to have like an accounting or something like that, but to an extent, I've always kind of wanted to be able to explore my options going out because you could find yourself in an accounting major stuck in there and really not enjoy it. And then you're kind of stuck either being an accountant or a bookkeeper, something along those lines. So what I really found interesting with risk management was there was just so many options to go with, and there still are. And I'm sure I'm going to learn of so many more as I go throughout my years at Butler.
Yeah,
That was
no,
one of
it's
the big
definitely an
perks.
interesting thing to bring up is just the broadness
Mhm.
of the risk management major. Sometimes it might be a little overwhelming of you don't really know what you can do because you can do almost anything. Like you don't even have to go
Mhm.
into the insurance industry for a risk management major. You could double major, do computer science, do
Mhm.
finance, and go to a different field. I think
Yeah.
it's kind of that background and that flexibility of you really get to make your own box of career opportunities, and
Mhm.
also it's very flexible because you're unique. You're not a commodity graduating. There's not that many of students graduating with that major, so I think that kind of makes you pretty flexible and desirable
Mhm.
to really any business that you want to go into.
Yeah, absolutely. What my advisors have been telling me is like you're not stuck on any path with risk management. Like you're gonna have so many tools that you can go into pretty much any business industry you'd like to. And that's another huge thing for me, was just the open-endedness.
So
But yeah,
so
as you
how
said,
did
it is a
you
little overwhelming because there's so much that I simply don't know at this point. I'm taking like all the basic core first year business classes right now. So those are giving me a good like baseline for it, but it's still really overwhelming to have to look into future. People say, oh, well, what do you want to do with that? Because I mean, when I'm here and I tell people I'm a risk management major, it raises some eyebrows. It gets people a little, what is that? And sometimes I just don't have an answer because it's so broad, which is really nice, but certainly overwhelming at times.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly felt that same thing. As soon as you
Mhm.
kind of get into that first course, intro to insurance, and obviously, the internships are huge. So once you kind of get in that, get some experience, get some exposure, some
Yeah.
kind of Sigma meetings there on campus. I think that's really interesting too of what you said of you have time to decide. You're a freshman. What I wish I known sooner. There's there's no need to rush into it. I just kind of kept following the yeses, got more involved internships. And if, but that means I wasn't doing other stuff, in
Mhm.
college, because I
Mhm.
was doing uh, industry involvement and planning events and such.
Mhm.
So, there's time, you have a lot of time to decide, a lot of time to specialize, and just kind of make that broadness narrower and narrower. And
Mhm.
that's really not a rush. But yeah, can you kind of talk about those conversations, with peers as you're saying, like,
Yeah.
know, that's something that I kind of struggle with still too, is how do you attract people to the industry when you just know you want to be in it. You don't really
Yep.
know exactly what it is
So
yet.
what I say is like I'm risk management and insurance, and then people immediately think, oh, well, that's just kind of lame. Like that's just a surefire thing. You're going into the insurance world, which really isn't. I mean, there's so much to do in it, and it's really people overlook it, I think, because it's really cool data analytics, a lot of math stuff, a lot of business involvement in it, and people overlook that. So when I tell them risk management, I mean, there's just it can go so many ways. I've had so many conversations with people. It's really interesting when people know what risk management is because they are the ones who are really happy for you that you're going into it. Because I haven't met someone who's interested in risk management or who had followed a career in that path that's regretted it. So I
Yes.
mean, it's certainly strange, but yeah, those conversations they normally go. I tell them risk management. I say it's. I've been telling people it's like really mathy business because that's just I think the simplest way to put it for someone who doesn't know what it is. I think so that's
Yeah.
how those
So
go.
kind of, in the position you're in, I think just the industry overall could use more, representatives or early on, high school, freshman year of college students, because that's, it's referrals. So I think everything's kind of referral based. And I think, getting into the insurance industry is pretty similar, just kind of you being that voice to your
Mhm.
peers. I think that's awesome. But, my question to you is what kind of tools or resources from the actual insurance industry, from, as you said, people who you talk to in the industry, you haven't met anyone who regrets being in the insurance industry or else they wouldn't be there. Is there some resources or some stories or what would be something helpful to you to when your peers come to you and ask you, why the risk management major? I think that puts you in kind of a difficult position because you don't really you haven't had that experience to really
Yeah.
answer that question. What would be useful to you to feel more confident, giving those explanations.
Absolutely, like just getting out there, like figuring out, talking to my resources, like my advisor, Victor Paleo. He's given me a lot of advice on it. He knows the industry very well. He's been in it for a while now, so he's been able to help me out along those paths. And then also talking to people like the career fairs and all that, getting into the talking to some insurance companies like Lilly, all that are really helpful. They start to give me a basic knowledge of what I'm getting into. And going to those Gamma Iota Sigma meetings, there's a lot of guest speakers there who are able to assist me, give me some good information. Even if it seems really simple for someone who's higher up in the industry, for someone just starting out, it's really helpful. It gives me a little bit of information about anything at this point. All
Yeah.
helps. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly what you're saying is being, a sponge, kind of trying to get as much exposure to just general business as possible, because that's really what the insurance industry is. We're in the insurance industry, but we're also in, this industry, that industry, depending on what you're specializing in. And I think just kind of getting that foundation of that, unique background, flexible, and you just seeing all these different perspectives, and especially with Butler's experiential learning of FBE, RBE. Are you in FBE now, or
I'm in FBE right now. Yes.
so that's
Mhm.
our first year business experience? Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so that's a really cool concept. I mean, you just pretty much there's textbook learning, obviously. You got the chapters where it goes over pretty much every fundamental thing of business. So you got like operations, distribution, marketing, finance, just very vaguely into each of those to sort of give you an outline of business. And then you pretty much the whole class is starting a hypothetical business, running through each. You got an operations plan, marketing plan, branding, financials, all that. And then you just predict sales and try to get a startup going all hypothetically. So that's really cool from what I've
Mhm.
seen. Yeah.
And then, next year, the real business experience where you kind of
Mhm.
take those practical skills
Yeah.
and, actually get a loan from the school and you're starting up your own company. And, I think what's really interesting is in that is obviously when you're in those teams, the people who have the marketing major are going to flock to
Mhm.
maybe the sales and marketing of the product. People with the finance and accounting are going to flock to, the numbers and, revenue and profit and expenses side of
Mhm.
that. And then with just that risk management major, how have you kind of seen your interest or your skill set kind of complementing other people in your group?
Yeah, so I mean, right now I'm doing so me and this other guy, we split financials pretty well. So we've been doing the financials, and then I took the operations chief, sort of, just get an industry outlook, sort of. And that's what kind of I've been focusing on, because we have a marketing person. We have our CEO, she's terrific. She does a lot. And then we have chief of HR were our positions. So I felt operations, and then I'd help with finances would kind of go slightly with my risk management. Because obviously I think finance is the main place where it would go, but we had a financial guy. So I took the operations and just helped him out there.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. Just kind of the overview of the finance side, money in, money out, of operations side, because that's really what a risk manager would do, is just oversee the operations of the business as a whole, see where the potential risks are, where the perils are, and where that business interruption is going to come from, and how to protect or reduce the likelihood of that happening.
Absolutely.
So what would you say, obviously with a freshman first semester, you've done some other stuff outside of academics, and then internal academics wise, what's something that you're excited for, kind of looking forward to at Butler, and what do you kind of wish that you knew? The knowledge will come naturally just with time, knowledge and experience, but what's something that you're kind of wishing that you knew more about now?
Something I wish I knew within the classroom.
Internships, just kind of how.
Let's see. I mean, I probably wish I had some real like businessy experience coming in, because that seems to be like the main experiential learning, which is really cool. Like I've held jobs in the past, but nothing really oriented around business. And my high school offered an internship class, which I did not take advantage of. So that's something I kind of wish I did in high school, because I could have gotten any experience. Yeah, I've worked at like Target, Dairy Queen, small typical high school jobs, but nothing really within the business world. So I mean, I felt if I would have capitalized on that opportunity, it could have been a lot better, but I'm still not too concerned. I know Butler's going to prepare me well to get an internship, get out there in the world with their experience.
Yeah. I mean, as you're saying, those early high school, maybe summer jobs of just the customer service aspect of that, I think that's very transferable to any job that you're doing, is just knowing how to interact with the customer, how to service, and how to, sell a product of that in that way, in that sense. And then also what you're saying with the internships, but Butler's requirement for two internships for credit, that's obviously very helpful to reach the potential employers, because they know Butler requires that, the students know, and they match you up very well. If the insurance industry particularly or specifically, that's when Gamma Iota Sigma, RIMS, WSIA, other places will kind of be your better bet with that, which is kind of the draw of industry specificness. Okay. And with that hands-on, internships really sold it for me. And as you're saying, just kind of filling in that gap of the classroom, and then what does my job actually look like once I graduate? And that's the peek into the future is the internships. My first one, sophomore year summer, really impactful. And just with the on-the-job training, like I think it's kind of the norm maybe to be sophomore year summer. And it seems summers are more preferential than fall or spring. But I really wouldn't see why somebody, like yourself couldn't get an internship before that. I think that's on the employer's end too, of reaching out and starting those conversations. Even if it's not for credit necessarily, for Butler's credit, it's still definitely beneficial.
Absolutely.
So what would be something you would kind of look for, in your first internship, like during the career fairs? Like what's some questions you kind of ask, or what do you kind of look for?
I really want a spot where I'm in like not necessarily a mentorship, but I can work like assisting someone, so I can figure like have a upper authority who knows really well what they're doing, who can kind of groom me a little bit, so I can get good information, be able to do my own stuff while still having like a resource out there if I do need help, because obviously I'm not going to go into a job and just know perfectly what I'm doing. It'll take a little bit of time. So I mean, if I can have like a good community around me, a good set of advisors and managers, stuff like that, then it'll really be helpful, beneficial for me, I think. So that's
Yeah.
gonna be the real perk, yeah, or the real what I look for.
I think what you're really saying is that team, kind of
Yeah.
that support system
Mhm.
in place, kind of maybe. I mean, I think everyone is attracted to the idea of the safety net, just having someone to step back on
Mhm.
in case, as you say, those times might come where being the new person or not really knowing exactly, having
Mhm.
someone that you can ask and be, available there, that whole mentorship. I think
Mhm.
that's a great thing to keep in mind during these interviews and such. And I think the insurance industry is a great place for my internship. I still talk to people from almost every one of my internships,
Mhm.
uh, bosses or managers. Definitely great resource. Everyone seems to be very friendly in the
Yeah.
insurance industry,
Mhm.
and just I think talking to as much people. Once you get that company address, the company email address,
Yeah.
just go on LinkedIn, just type in people's names, find them, and then you can just and Outlook, you just click like two, and you can type in anyone's name internally, and it'll pull up their email address. So that's definitely a good tool.
Absolutely.
So with that internship, besides kind of the
Mhm.
mentoring side, you're
Mhm.
you're not really far into the coursework at all, insurance industry specific, but have you heard at all of the property casualty or kind of the professional liability track, or what kind of line of
Well,
business?
yeah, I mean, so I looked into it a little. The property really seems interesting to me a lot of bit. And then casualty not as much, but the personal liability seemed pretty cool. And there was also the underwriter, which I was looking into. That whole career seemed really interesting. Like you got to look into background information, take into account all these things, use your data, and then come up with by calculating like their rates and all that. It seems really interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, with the property side,
Mhm.
just like you're really an online detective
Mhm.
in every sense of it. Like you get a submission from the brokers. You would literally type in the address. You would go on to Google Maps. You would look at the building. I've sat in a room with my last internship was at a carrier in California, and just like the manager was doing earthquakes. The line manager was doing a lot of earthquakes, so he would just be able to like look at a building and tell what year it was made by just seeing like if the garage slanted this way or what building material it was, and he would just kind of know, because that's
Mhm.
and I think it's really like how you want to like see the world, or what kind of
Mhm.
draws you in. And I think that's great about what the insurance industry has to offer, is you can really align your hobbies and your passions with your
Yeah.
day-to-day actual
Mhm.
work.
Yeah, it just seemed really interesting to be able to dive into like little stuff like that and just know exactly which one's beneficial or just have that background. It's really interesting to me. So I think the underwriter part is right now attracting me the most. I think. Mhm.
Yeah, and I think even reflecting back, just even an internship or any experience that you don't necessarily like,
Mhm.
that just still helps you kind of narrow down that broadness again. Even if you have a property internship and you decide I don't like property, I think while you're in that property internship, reach out to the casualty, reach out to professional liability folks internally, and just continue to network. Even you could probably tell with two or three calls if you would like casualty at all. And I just kind of hearing like their day to day
Yeah,
and what
absolutely.
they're doing.
Mhm.
You could probably, like, once you start asking questions
Mhm.
that are very specific, and I think the risk management major, that background helps you ask very specific questions, because you have enough background knowledge to know. It kind of speeds up the timeline of
Yeah.
getting into the details a little quicker than if you
Yeah.
didn't have any base foundation.
Mhm. And have you had any like internships that you felt were negative or you really just didn't like? Or no, not really.
I mean, I wouldn't say like negative. I would
Yeah.
just say, I went into, one internship this last summer. I went into like a trucking binding authority, and the binding authority aspect was very interesting to me. I'd been at a carrier before. I didn't know about the MGA. It's kind of, so you had like a carrier, and it would front, they call it like paper. So just for like distribution, you would front from a carrier to an MGA
Okay.
to get kind of more sales reach or more, because you're not paying for the staff, but then you get some of the profits from this MGA. So it's just a way to market your product to more brokers, more people, kind of get it more out there. And then I went in knowing that I wasn't interested in transportation. So, but it was still interesting to learn and ask the questions and learn, general liability, property, FISDAM. And it's like, you definitely get a broader perspective of, they call it kind of like a generalist background of just kind of doing all lines of insurance. So that's something that I really do appreciate of a lot of my internships is put together. I've seen a lot of the industry before I even started my job. But then by knowing what's out there, what I like, what I don't like, I was able to pick, honestly, the job I wanted to go into in every sense of the way, with the team, the line of business, the setup of distribution. So I think, I wouldn't say that I didn't like any internship, but I think it's also kind of hard to go into an internship and know that that's not what you want to do before you get there. But then again, networking internally, I was able to get connected to people in the professional liability side at that company. So that would be an advantage as well. I just think it's because even if I don't like transportation, say someone else at Butler, someone else in Gamma Iota Sigma would like transportation, then I would already know the context to send them, hey, talk to this guy, talk to this girl, like they work at this company and do transportation. Maybe you should connect with them. So I think making the most out of every opportunity and just finding the best way to take advantage. There's a reason you're there. There's a reason you had an internship. Like there's benefit to all of it. So I think just kind of finding a way to benefit the most is beneficial.
Yeah, because that was like what ultimately brought me to Butler was the experiential learning, like the requirement of 2 internships. Because I know I probably would have gotten one in another school, but without like the requirement, it would have been hard. Because it's a little scary get out there and do a real job. So but the requirement really forces you out there, and it's easily the greatest way to learn. I've said it before. I can spend like 5 years learning Spanish, or I can spend 6 months in Spain and I can learn the exact same amount of Spanish. So I feel getting out there, there's only so much you can do in a classroom. So I think that's a real cool part, and I'm going to hope to capitalize on that opportunity.
Yeah, no, I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with pretty early on, in their career, is balancing the knowledge aspect, the classroom, even with the insurance designations, CPCU, RPLU, balancing that knowledge with the actual experience of working and doing the actual job. So I think that's something that won't really go away. But then, as you're saying, the internship for credit, and just with the setup I've had last year, I would work, on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I would have all my classes on Tuesday, Thursday. So I would have 4 classes Tuesday, Thursday, and then the 5th class would be the internship. So it just makes it easier, in every sense of it, easier for you as a student, easier for the company to hire you. And I think it's a net positive all around with that. So what would you say, you've talked about the career fairs, just kind of getting through the process and just kind of seeing how it works. Obviously, LinkedIn and, some resume experience. I think you're doing great, with the stepping stone of once these internships become a possibility or more likelihood. Just I just really didn't want to be the student or the person like junior or senior year that was like a shock, like, oh, I have to go get a job now. Absolutely. I just didn't really want to be that person. And I think you go to college to get a job. And that's just perspective I've had, since high school. And I just think some people are kind of shocked when it comes, senior year, and you're like, I have to start interviewing. How do I interview? I've never done an interview before.
Yep.
So what else do you think is kind of next for you with that, with the career fairs, or why did you
Oh,
kind
like
of,
that.
want to start kind of early with this process?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm planning on hopefully sophomore summer year is when I'll get my first internship. That's my ideal plan as of now, the rough one. So if I keep going, trying to get my name out there, even though I have no intent of getting internships, just talking to these people, writing down an email, um, getting experience with interviews, because I've interviewed at places before, but nothing like in a professional environment. So it'll be hopefully beneficial to get my name out there in career fairs, just get talking to people, and then try to develop good relationships with my advisor and my career mentor, like Wayne Pack, because I know those people have a lot of influence and a lot of power. They've been in the industry for some time now, so they're they're sharing their wisdom with us almost, and I think feel like they need to be utilized if they're there. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And just kind of with the perspective that you have now of kind of knowing, hey, I think I like property underwriting.
Mhm.
And I think Butler's academics prepares you very well for that property casualty underwriting position. But this is something I've kind of thought about is as the risk management major,
Mhm.
you're pretty specialized already. So what
Yep.
point would you be filling instead of the entry level like BOP, business owners,
Mhm.
policy underwriting, just small revenue, small scale companies? At what point would you, instead of be training for those entry level roles, would you be training for the property underwriter who's writing, skyscrapers downtown? So I
Yeah.
think it's kind of a question to you is with this perspective that you have of, oh, property underwriting,
Mhm.
how could Butlers change their academics or kind of scale their academics in a different way to kind of tailor that to you, of knowing like, hey, property underwriting. I think the
Mhm.
entry level classes cover a lot of homeowners, a lot of personal lines, a lot of life
Yep.
insurance, and I think that's great to have that foundation.
Yeah.
But if people are deciding this early of like property underwriting,
Mhm.
how does the academics change, or how does this or that change to be more beneficial to you, or the next generation of
I feel
students?
like Butler offers, like, with the program, you have plenty of opportunities for classes to take. You have choices within your major. So I mean, they give you a lot of. There's obviously a few intro classes you got to take for your core, but then outside that, you're within your major, you got plenty of opportunities and options. So I feel like just if you have a basic idea of what I'd like to do, like property underwriting, if we'll say for now, then just trying to figure out which ones can relate to that the best and give me the best opportunity to succeed in that industry. See which ones give the best information that can associate with that is really how I feel. It'd just be a lot of research before just being able to choose the correct classes, making sure that I'm on a path that I at least have a vague idea of what I want to do so then I can capitalize on the class options pretty much. Hmm.
Yeah, and I think as you're saying, what are you going towards, and then
Hmm.
I obviously that we have the student run captive class, and I think the captive class is a great catch all because you would break it up into, from my memory, there's a property team that would
Hmm.
underwrite some of the buildings, and then they have or some business interruption side in the property team. I was on the RBE team,
Hmm.
which is underwriting the individual RBE teams and kind of planning for the future of those risk controls. I remember we had some like there was a lot of like flammable products that people were the big essential oil phase.
Oh,
So
yep.
we had to try to purchase some like fire hazard safe storage containers
Hmm.
and just kind of reduce like the risks of in the business building. So I
Hmm.
think there's definitely going to be opportunities in the academics to get some, as you say, the experiential learning. So
Yeah,
I think that's definitely something to look forward to.
absolutely.
Well, George, as we wrap up here, is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you would kind of like to put out there? Anything on your mind that you're kind of curious about or want to know more about?
So you said with the RBE, so you got to work with like the teams within each of those to ensure them. That's cool. Okay. So I mean, I'm excited to do that next year when I'll have to work with you or with someone who's
Yeah,
on that team with I take RBE, and I'm really excited to take that class because I've done like the hypothetical um business plans, all of that, but I've never really put it into action. So I think I'll be excited to do that next
yeah,
year. But other than that, no, yeah, that's cool.
yeah, definitely. So with like the underwriting the RB teams, it's kind of checking to see like proof of insurance
Mhm.
because we're using like third-party suppliers for most of it.
Okay.
And then there's kind of like an approved list if you want, the Butler logo, you have to do some royalties, and then there's an approved list of like suppliers that are through a Butler network that would be able to do that. And then checking proof of insurance, like for if there is the likelihood of a claim happens, then we want to make sure that the suppliers have insurance, so then Butler's not 100% liable for that. And then I think it's like how to scale the risk management, or how to use risk management to help encourage the companies to scale. I remember in some of my trainings, it was like making sure that the team has something as simple as making sure the team members have like auto insurance, like car insurance, and having that submitted to the school. So when if they were selling off campus, or if there was a sales opportunity, or if they had to go pick up their supplies instead of shipping it to save money and reduce that bottom line,
Mhm.
just making sure that they were thinking bigger in a way. And just how to like not be necessarily afraid of the risk management insurance side of it, but to use that knowledge to scale the businesses. And then just making sure like mine was cookie cutters. So we had to make sure that it was like food safe material for consumption. And I mean, yeah, just checking where like the liability is and what risk is too much risk. So that's when you'll see
Absolutely.
with the other teams of the other RB students when they're brainstorming. And then when the captive class comes in and presents, you would kind of notice where there's been pain points in the past and where we want to kind of scale the business ideas.
Absolutely. Cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us, George.
Of course.
Best
Thank
of
you for
luck
having
with
me.
the rest of your semester.
You as well. Thank you very much.